Like most people, you've probably got a lot going on. So if you can't make it to a Charles Bookwalter for Congress town hall, we'll bring the town hall to you. Join Charles Bookwalter Thursday nights at 7 p.m. for a digital town hall, streaming live on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Jump into the comments section to join in the conversation. Make a comment or ask Charles for his opinions on the issues that are most important to you. That's the Charles Bookwalter for Congress digital town hall, streaming live beginning at 7 p.m. Thursday nights. Exclusively on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Search Bookwalter for Congress to learn more.
The more that a broken system tells you that you're wrong, the more certain you should be that you must keep pushing ahead. Because it's the outsiders who change the world and who make a real and lasting difference. Nothing worth doing ever came easy. Treat the word impossible as nothing more than motivation. The future belongs to the people who follow their heart no matter what the critics say. We must always remember that we share one home and one glorious destiny. We all bleed the same red blood of patriots. We all salute the same great American flag. Our best days are yet to come.
What are the people of Indiana's 4th District saying about Jim Baird voting with Democrats to pass Joe Biden's $1.2 trillion spending bill? On May 7th, vote no to Jim Baird.
I'm Charles Bookwalter, and I approve this message.
What are the people of Indiana's 4th District saying about Jim Baird voting with Democrats to pass Joe Biden's $1.2 trillion spending bill? On May 7th, vote no to Jim Baird.
I'm Charles Bookwalter, and I approve this message.
If we look to the answer as to why for so many years we achieved so much, prospered as no other people on earth, it was because here in this land we unleashed the energy and individual genius of man to a greater extent than has ever been done before. Freedom and the dignity of the individual have been more available and assured here than in any other place on earth. The price for this freedom at times has been high, but we have never been unwilling to pay that price. Those who say that we're in a time when there are no heroes, they just don't know where to look. The sloping hills of Arlington National Cemetery, with its row upon row of simple white markers bearing crosses or stars of David, they add up to only a tiny fraction of the price that has been paid for our freedom. Each one of those markers is a monument to the kind of hero I spoke of earlier. Their lives ended in places called Belleau Wood, the Argonne, Omaha Beach, Salerno, and halfway around the world on Guadalcanal, Tarawa, Pork Chop Hill, the Chosin Reservoir, and in 100 rice paddies and jungles of a place called Vietnam. Under one such marker lies a young man, Martin Treptow, who left his job in a small-town barber shop in 1917 to go to France with the famed Rainbow Division. There on the Western Front, he was killed trying to carry a message between battalions under heavy artillery fire. We're told that on his body was found a diary. On the flyleaf, under the heading, "My Pledge," he had written these words: "America must win this war. Therefore I will work, I will save, I will sacrifice, I will endure. I will fight cheerfully and do my utmost as if the issue of the whole struggle depended on me alone. We must realize that no arsenal or no weapon in the arsenals of the world is so formidable as the will and moral courage of free men and women. It is a weapon our adversaries in today's world do not have. It is a weapon that we as Americans do have. Let that be understood by those who practice terrorism and prey upon their neighbors. As for the enemies of freedom, those who are potential adversaries, they will be reminded that peace is the highest aspiration of the American people. We will negotiate for it, sacrifice for it. We will not surrender for it now or ever. We are Americans.
This is the Charles Bookwalter for Congress Digital Town Hall. Your chance to talk directly with Charles Bookwalter about the issues important to you. Jump into the comments and join the conversation. Now, without further ado, here's your host, congressional candidate for Indiana's 4th District, Charles Bookwalter.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the show this evening. The reason that there's a little bit of change in how we're doing the show this evening. We are, I think, 26 days out from the election right now. And as a result of that, there's so much to do. There are candidate forums going on. There's door knocking. There's things going all over the district that are keeping us extremely busy. And a lot of these things happen on Thursday evenings. This Thursday evening, tonight, I will be at the Clinton County Candidate Forum from 7 to 8:30 or 9 p.m. So if you're in the area, please come out to the event. But we wanted to have something that we could present to you this evening so that you could be a part of the show tonight. So that's why we're doing this. We're doing something pre-recorded, and thank you very much for showing up tonight. So we're just going to play this pre-recording. So after you've seen it, you can tune out and go enjoy the rest of your evening. But I just want to talk to a few things tonight about the race, things that are going on, and how we could use your help. The fact is like running this campaign, we announced our candidacy on May 21st, if some of you remember, and it has been a whirlwind of activity. It is a lot of busy work just running for office. There are phone calls. I take phone calls every day, a lot of messaging, a lot of study that it takes to read and study important issues when you're going to debate these topics. We did a forum, a debate last week, so it takes a lot of prep, making commercials, cutting radios. On top of that, I've got young kids at home and a homestead. I've got a small business that I have to run. It takes a lot of work. And I say all that because, here I am at 47 years old, pretty fit and in shape, and I'm stretched pretty thin, and it takes a lot of work and a lot of energy. And it's disappointing and frustrating when we put all this energy into serving the people of the 4th Congressional District, doing the job of a representative in the 4th District, going to district meetings, going to commissioners' meetings, meeting with people. That's the job of the representative. It takes a lot of work and a lot of energy to do that. And then when the incumbent doesn't show up for these events to discuss these very important issues, incredibly important issues that you're all telling me about, I know about, like that we're all suffering from, we're all concerned about, and our elected rep in our district doesn't even show up, won't show up for a debate, won't show up for a forum. Do you know where they do show up? At the Lincoln Day dinner, to slap backs with all the other elected representatives. Believe me, I've been there. I've seen it. In fact, have kind of made a point of this. I hear commercials now for gubernatorial candidates, and I think every one of them is an outsider. Now, everyone knows my stance on it. I think there's two outsiders that I'm happy to talk about. Curtis Hill and Jamie Rittenauer, both good candidates that I think philosophically align with patriots and with the liberty movement. The rest of them, not so much. But the rest of them are talking about how they're outsiders. I don't even, all of them saying the same. They could be in politics their entire lives. They're an outsider. They've worked in Indiana state government their entire lives, but yet they're an outsider because they've never been elected before. But I want to ask you, do you know what it's really like to be an outsider, what it's truly like? Being an outsider is going to these Lincoln Day dinners and not having that many people come up to you. Not many elected representatives want to come up to you and talk to you about your campaign or any policy or any ideas that you may have. Being an outsider is being in those uncomfortable situations. Now, frankly, all these other gubernatorial candidates that call themselves outsiders, they could walk into any Lincoln Day dinner in any district or in any county and be welcomed with a resounding round of applause because they're not outsiders. They're actually insiders. They could probably walk into any Democrat dinner. They're not Lincoln Day dinners. They're Karl Marx dinners. But they could walk into any of those and they could get probably a standing ovation because they're politicians and they're well known. So they're not outsiders, and don't let them fool you. But it is frustrating when these so-called outsiders, or in Jim Baird's case, an insider and an incumbent, does not show up for the important events where there are dissatisfied, disenfranchised, and concerned citizens that put debates like Purdue Republicans worked hard to put on a debate. And Jim Baird just didn't show up. He was in Lafayette the day before. He was in Lebanon the day of, I believe, and still didn't show up for a debate. And these politicians owe it to us. That's their job. I learned at one of my old jobs that if you're ever going to ask for a promotion, or if you want to move up in the company or whatever, then you have to do the job before you ask for it. If you want a promotion to manager, then you better be acting like a manager before you go and ask for the job. I tell everyone that I'm trying to do the job. I am invested and engaged in the issues that are very important to me and other like-minded constitutional liberty candidates. And we'll go over some of those issues right now just to talk about them. But it's frustrating when we put so much time and energy into that, trying to get access to the people that actually make decisions about these incredible spending bills like Jim Baird, and they just don't show up. It's just unbelievable that Congressman Baird can just not show up for anything and get reelected. These incumbents get reelected at an incredible rate. And we cannot allow that to happen anymore. And if you're frustrated with the way things are going right now, if you are unhappy with what happened during COVID, when none of these elected representatives stood up for you, now's the time to make a change. If you are terribly dissatisfied with these exorbitant, massive pork barrel spending bills, including the COVID stimulus bills and all those bills filled with pork, then you have a chance right now. You can do something about it. You have to get engaged. You have to vote in the primary on May 7th. That is the one thing we can do, is go after this politically. I got a call yesterday or 2 days ago from a family member, a sibling of mine, very close, who runs a business in the west side of the state, just outside of my district, right on the border. It's in Fountain County, Indiana. And Fountain County has just released the news or information. I can't remember the name of the acreage, but they're approved a massive solar field. We don't call them farms anymore. They're not farms. It's just massive solar field. Now, my sibling has a beautiful property, a country property, and that's where she runs her business out of this property. And she's invested a lot in the area, a lot in that business, in that perfect place that would be her forever home. And now she's in a fight trying to keep these solar panels from going in right adjacent to her pristine, beautiful, rolling, Indiana rural agricultural farm ground. She's so concerned to the point that it's emotional. And she called me the other day, very upset about what this looks like. She made this incredible point, is that now she's considering moving, or at least has to think that if they can't get this to stop, then it's possible that she's going to have to move. And she said, and now if I move and I put my home on the market, then I'm going to have the disclaimer that there's a solar field coming in, and they have to know that ahead of time. But the county government didn't do that for her. They didn't tell her 3 years ago that these sales reps are showing up with bags full of cash and money and subsidies and all the things that they're bringing, these federal subsidies to build these inefficient, ineffective, and unreliable solar fields all over Indiana. They didn't tell her that, but she has to disclose that to the next buyer. And then you learn about these, how they come to fruition, that the commissioners are involved in it, that the commissioners are invested in these solar companies. They have property that they're signing over their property to. That is the most irksome thing. Now, people ask me all the time, what's the biggest problem in America right now? I say long term, it's apathy. It is. It's our fault that we're in these situations that we're in right now. It is our fault. Primary voter turnout, it's like at the best 12%. So we've taken on that responsibility. We've talked about that a lot. But what's more irksome, and I won't let these people get off the hook, we will hold these people accountable, are these county commissioners and these people that are elected or they're associated or politically connected that are profiting off of our misery at that point. And that's what it is. And they're profiting from this, and they're trying to tell us that this is good for us. This is one of the most divisive things that I've ever seen. This implementation of the Biden green energy policy in Indiana being implemented by Republicans, and they're all of them are, and nearly every single one are complicit in what's going on. They have voted for the IEDC. They have approved all of these permitting and zoning and all that, all for the money. They are doing it for the money, and they tell you that they're doing it for money. They have to be held accountable. Yes, it's our fault that we're not going to the commissioners' meetings, but we have given them and trusted them as elected representatives to look out for our best interest. And this is why I'm a constitutional conservative, because if you read your Constitution and your state constitution, then you know that these people don't have the authority to do it. And our framers wrote it that way because they knew the avarice of men and the greed of men and women. And this is what we're seeing. We have gone so far away from of a government that is there just to protect our God-given rights into a government where these elected officials, they're telling us exactly why they're doing it. Do you want to know why they're putting these solar fields and the wind farms and the carbon sequestration plants in there? They're doing it for money. They're telling you they're doing it for money. They're saying that we are increasing our tax base. That's what they're telling. But you will never get a reduction in your taxes. You're just going to get more government. This should be offensive to every liberty-loving, red-blooded American. When anyone ever says that in a commissioner's meeting, oh, this is great because we're going to increase our tax base, you should scorn them and mock them. That is not their job, is to be taking our land and creating this niche markets and stealing our taxpayer dollars or federal subsidies to increase the tax base and bring more money into these local governments. What's worse is they even do it and they say things like they're doing it because they need to ambulatory services or whatever service. Do you know how many times, how many generations that they've already stolen money from in taxation or TIF or whatever programs that they have to build the roads or have ambulatory services or fire and police or whatever? They have promised generations that this security or this safety or these healthcare measures, and it never works out. They mismanage it. It fails. And who knows how much money is being lost in grift and graft and corruption, but we know that's occurring. But they're doing it and making promises that we know now will never be delivered. Some of them will be delivered, but a lot of them will not be delivered. I promise you, you give me a few $1 million, and I'm pretty decent with investing and handling money. I could do some good with that money. But even a nincompoop could take a couple $1 million and create something out of it, maybe something good. I mean, all those trillions of dollars worth to NASA. I mean, at least we got dehydrated ice cream, right? You get something small, but this is the same thing, and they're preying on the sentiments of people that are trying to work and are leaving the responsibilities to these elected officials. They're preying on them, saying, this is for schools, this is for education, this is for ambulatory services, this is for fire. What, you don't want good fire service? What, you don't like education? They have been making these promises my entire life, my parents' entire life, and our grandparents' entire life. We cannot trust these people with this. This is why our constitutions were written the way they were. So be so strict and specific that the role of government was only meant to be there to protect our God-given lives, our God-given rights to life, liberty, and property. So it's very frustrating when Congressman Baird or these local officials or whatever don't show up for events. They've been elected, so they don't have to show up anymore. They know that people aren't going to go out in the primary and vote for them, and so they can just sit at home. So it kind of shows the dichotomy between the campaigns when our approach for the last month, we've neglected to go to some of these Lincoln Day dinners knowing that most of those people are party people that have already decided that they vote for the party. They don't vote for, it doesn't really matter what the candidate is versus what we're doing, which is focusing on door knocking and meeting with constituents. So that's a big difference in these campaigns. And I can't reiterate enough about how all these issues are about federal taxpayer dollars. I mean, the PrEP Act, we just saw, it just happened. There was a case in North Carolina where the court ruled that the government is able to mandate or to give vaccines without consulting or getting consent from the parents, and the court ruled that way. I mean, it wasn't that long ago that a school nurse could not give a child aspirin. And the courts are now ruling that they can give your child the COVID vaccine or any vaccine without your consent. That is unbelievable. And the reason that they're doing it is because they want these federal dollars and these federal subsidies through the PrEP Act. And to get them and to get that, they've already talked about it. They talk about it in the PrEP Act when you read about it back in 2005 and 2006, that it's all about getting federal money to build up whatever they're trying to build up on the local level, which they think is altruistic and good for the people. But we see now it is not. It's anything but that. It's harming people with these systems that they're developing around us. Another one is election integrity. Think about that. We're heading into an election. It is a month of voting. That's absurd. We should never have that. The Indiana Constitution states that we will vote on one day, and we didn't have primaries back then. One day, and that day was going to be the second Tuesday of November, and it says on a ballot. And when that was written in the 19th century, a ballot was a paper slip. That's the definition of it. So it says it in the Constitution, one day on paper ballots. And the reason that we don't have that anymore is because of the Help America Vote Act, the HAVA Act that was passed in 2001 after the Bush-Gore election and the hanging Chad scenario. And, everyone was like, oh, what are we going to do about these elections, a hanging Chad or whatever? And so the federal government steps in and they offer a ton of money to these states to help secure their elections. That's what they said. The opponents to the HAVA Act at the time said, you can't do this because there's no way that these states are going to be able to keep up with the machines and the service on the machines and the software service and everything. So he said, you can't do this. The federal government can't come in and create these mandates or create this or give the states money and set this up and then expect the states to do it. They don't have the money to do it. And they said, if you do this, the federal government's never going to be able to get out of our state elections. And by the way, the federal government is not supposed to be in our state elections. Elections are supposed to be administered by the states and by the states only. But that doesn't happen anymore. It doesn't occur anymore. Why? Because the Secretary of State and all the people down there in that office, they want that HAVA money. It's all about the money. They want the HAVA money. This year, Indiana got $2 million. And that's what it's all about. They want the money. They've admitted it. That's what they money. I forgot to say, it was the same with that PrEP Act. They wanted access to that money. And the PrEP Act sets up health and vaccines and stuff in counties throughout America. And the opponents to the PrEP Act argued and said, if you do this, the states they're not going to be able to keep up with all the upkeep, getting rid of expired vaccines and expired medical equipment and bringing in, they cannot afford to do this. And the opponent said, you can't do these kinds of things because the states can't afford it. Well, federal government, they love to hear that because that means that now they're there forever. They'll never get the federal government out of it. They're going to create a bureaucracy and create a czar or some kind of director so they can be involved in state affairs, something was never intended for them to do. So these are some of the reasons that we're running. Many of you know that. We put a lot of time and effort into fighting these fights that are important to Americans, and we know it. When I go to these solar oppositions to solar field meetings, oh, yes, everyone knows it. You don't even have to go up there with a sophisticated argument when you go up and testify. You don't need a sophisticated argument based in with all kinds of data and figures. Everyone in that room, including those that are in support of it, know that it is about the federal tax dollars. And there are people taking advantage of the scenario, and most of them, or many of them, are sitting on the government side of that of these meetings. People that benefit from it, the large-scale farmers that make $50 million, they benefit. They're for it. The government people, they're for it. More tax base. The planners, they're for it. They're all for it. And the 150 people that are there in opposition that get no benefit from it whatsoever, obviously were opposed to it. And we all know that it is a scam. This scam is an age-old debate about how are we going to govern our societies and our communities. It is the age-old debate of open markets and free market systems versus socialism. And what we have now in Indiana and what the gubernatorial candidates and Jim Baird and most big government Republicans are in favor of is they are in favor of interventionism. They want public-private partnerships. They tell us that there will be no economic development because we're too dumb and we don't have enough money to develop our own communities. They do this after taking 55 cents out of all of our dollars, heavily regulating us, making it difficult to open businesses, having serious regulations, that are obstacles to entry, so a lot of businesses can't even start because there's too much going on. So they created a scenario that it's hard to even develop economically. They take all of our money so we can't have it to invest, and then they tell us that we're too dumb and they have to do it. So they need to put that money, these hundreds of millions of dollars of our money, into these communities to determine who's going to come to our community, how they're going to get there, where they're going to go, how many jobs. It is clearly central planning. It is Soviet style central planning, and they benefit from it. The IEDC does, the people that run the IEDC, the lawyers for the IEDC, the consultants for the IEDC, the web developers that work with the IEDC, all the contractors, they all benefit from it. They love this system. But it is an age-old debate of how we're going to manage our communities. And so how are we going to grow? Are we going to do it through rivalry and entrepreneurship and local organic control, or are we going to do it through government taking our resources and picking winners and losers? And there is no better example than in Indiana's 4th district right now. And I can't encourage you enough that if we're going to make a change in Indiana, if we're actually going to, this is our land. This is our land. It is not theirs. This is our land. These are our communities. These are our families. It is not theirs. And if you want to actually take this back, if you want to actually do something about it, you have got to grab 10 of your friends, make sure that they are registered to vote, and get them to the primary. I was just told the other day by a close friend that they were having dinner with someone, and they're very active in they talk about it, they air their grievances, they're active in politics, they're going to vote, but they don't vote in the primary, like many of us. And the friend was telling me, they hammered, like, you got to go vote in the primary. The primary is the people's choice. The general election is the party's choice. That's why these parties don't want primary challengers. They don't want people in there making the choice. Again, getting back to my original thing, that's why this is so frustrating, that the people have a choice in the 4th Congressional District this year. We've got a choice. I'm willing to represent people of the 4th District. It's not something that I'm doing out of political opportunism. In fact, I don't mind my life of homesteading and homeschooling and home churching my daughters and being with my family. I frankly don't like the idea of being separated from my family or even living in Washington, D.C. I have no desire to live in Washington, D.C. But as I was debating this in the last few years and looking around me at where no one stood up for us during COVID, they absolutely failed us. They had an opportunity to go down in history as some of the greatest patriots in America, to stand up for our rights and do what we elected them to do. And they did not do it, and they failed us. And so I decided, like, someone's got to do it, and someone's got to speak truth. And so that's why I started getting involved. But it's not really something that I would want to do right now at this point in my life. But we've got to do something. We are on the precipice. They are completely mismanaging everything. We're on the brink of war with Iran. We're on the brink of war with Russia. It's unbelievable. We're about to see a dollar collapse. You know what that would look like if the dollar collapses? That would be civil unrest. If the reserve currency collapses, that could be civil unrest. And these people that tell us, that force us to do all these things, we have no more decision-making power in our communities. Good luck trying to get something stopped that they're doing in your local community. We have no voice in our communities anymore. And they are mismanaging everything. So if you feel like you want to get involved for the first time, you have got to vote in that primary. And we need your help and support in the 4th Congressional District. So that being all said, I came in a little frustrated in the last few days because of this. I couldn't imagine what I would think if they were going to put a solar farm in our forever home where we have a homestead. You buy acreage like that to protect you from that coming in, from this scam of climate catastrophe. That's what it is. Catastrophizing the climate is a scam. And industrial solar and industrial wind and carbon sequestration are scams on the American people. And we know it. And it is happening on our land, in our lives, within our families, dividing us. But it's also an opportunity to be unified. So I'm asking you, unify with us in the 4th Congressional District, support our candidacy. We need your help. We need your money. And we've done all of our fundraising to get to this point, to get to the point where we can have enough money to buy ads, buy radio ads, and get as much exposure as we can so that people know that they've got a choice this year in the 4th District to actually elect an outsider, to actually choose someone that is for the people. And if you do that, I will go to D.C., I will join the House Freedom Caucus and people like Thomas Massey, and I will fight for our rights. I'll end it on this one happy note. Last Thursday, I got a call from Congressman Bob Good, who's the chairman of the House Freedom Caucus. And I got about a 45-minute interview of why the House Freedom Caucus should endorse our campaign. I haven't heard back from them, but I did my best to paint a picture for what it's like here in the 4th District, what we're seeing, and why the House Freedom Caucus, who says to stop sending us Jim Baird to Washington, D.C. That's what they said. Stop sending us these Republicans, these big government, horrible country club, chamber of commerce Republicans. Stop sending them us. Send some patriots our way. So we reached out to them and said, hey, then punch down, come down to us and endorse campaigns like us, even if there's an incumbent in the race. So we got the call. I don't know if they'll endorse us, but I wanted to share that with our supporters and listeners that we could possibly get endorsed by the House Freedom Caucus, a caucus that I would go join if I went out there. And I would join those 20 or so patriots that are actually fighting back against like the FISA record, against big government, that are ready to make slashes, drastic cuts, and get government back to where it is controlled by we, the people, because we have completely lost control. Thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight for this town hall. It's a brief one. We got a lot of activity coming up. Go to our website, bookwalterforcongress.com, to look at the town halls. We will be doing a town hall every single night for the last 10 or so days leading up to the election. There's a lot of candidate forums going on in your county. So look up your county and look for your candidate forum and come and show up and ask questions. Please introduce yourself and ask questions. And we need your treasure. So if you've got 2 nickels to rub together, please send them to Bookwalter for Congress so we can use them to get the word out about our campaign. Thanks again for joining us tonight. Please share and like all the things we do on social media. Share it with your friends and vote in the primary. Thank you.
What does Chip Roy think about Jim Baird's yes vote for Biden's $1.2 trillion spending bill?
Any Republican who votes for this bill should be ashamed of themselves.
Jim Baird should be ashamed, and we should be disgusted.
This budget funds full-term abortion. It funds DEI. It funds trans ideology on our youth as young as 12 years old.
But at least Baird voted to protect the border, right?
If you care about the border, you're getting nothing here.
On May 7th, vote no to big government Jim Baird.
I'm Charles Bookwalter, and I approve this message. I'm Charles Bookwalter, and I'm running for Congress in Indiana's 4th Congressional District because our out-of-control government is, well, it's out of control. The border's wide open, and inflation is crippling the American dream. I approve this message because it's time to change Washington, not America.